In Unity Park this morning, Greenville residents and city officials, including Mayor Knox White, who you see right here, gathering in a show of solidarity with Israel. Fox Carolina's Zach Perlutsky was there, and he shows us the message they're wanting to spread.
Community members of different walks of life and different faith came here together at Unity Park to not only stand with the Jewish community in the upstate, but the Jewish community worldwide and the people in Israel. A show of solidarity, half a world away as the war in Israel continues on.
Making sure that our voice is heard, that people know that things that are happening in Israel are happening and impacting us locally as local Jews. And people are worried about their families, they're worried about their friends.
More than a dozen speakers took the podium, trying to put emotions into words.
I feel that if I am disconnected, living this far away, how can the people who this is truly affecting be making it through this horrible time?
It was so inspiring today to have so many leaders and different members of faith groups come together to talk about justice and talk about how important it is for Israel to survive.
At the park, a united feeling from a diverse crowd, including members of the Philos Action League, a group of Christians dedicated to showing up for the Jewish community.
It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible, and I just felt like this is the moment that the Jewish community needs us to be with them.
Several people at the rally have friends and family in Israel right now. Some of those people have even lost their lives.
I just don't know how people can be so evil.
Michal Rosenblit found out about the terrorist attacks on Saturday from her husband, Michael. They're both Israeli natives living in Greenville. 48 hours later, Michael was on the front lines fighting Hamas for their country.
For the last few days, we're here hoping that he's okay, that he's safe, and that he will come back soon, because there's kids waiting for him here.
It's a barbaric evil, indescribable.
In Greenville, Zach Perlutsky, Fox Carolina News.
Yeah, amazing to see everybody come together there this morning.